Hi, I'm Warren, one of the founding members of MELI Games, and this is 26 Questions with Warren.
Hi Warren, thank you for taking the time to join us for this 26 questions interview today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, let's get this started. What does the term MELI mean? Is there a special story or motivation behind picking this as a game name?
So MELI comes actually from the Latin word for better, and that's exactly what we want to bring to blockchain, to GameFi, kind of to the DeFi space in general. We have a very high standard, and we really want to keep that as we deploy more games into the space. We're not really happy with a lot of the GameFi projects that are coming out right now, and we think that the whole industry could operate at a much higher standard. We're very transparent with how we operate with our community. We've got a US trust company that holds the token, so users can feel very safe, holding MELI and working with our GameFi ecosystem.
As I know this project is relatively new, can you tell us about the progress you have made so far? What has been the most important update of the moment, and what are you currently focused on?
Yeah, sure. So we've actually been working on this for over a year. Started last year, we raised some funding earlier this year. We started building our dev tool around January or February. We've really been putting a lot of the pressure really on delivering the high quality mobile games. We are looking at browser games in the future. We only really started building the community pretty recently. One of the biggest progress milestones, I would say, has probably been expanding into Southeast Asia. That's a bit of a challenge. We've just released in different localized language versions, working with game guilds, partners, in different countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines. It's really been nice to hear from fans across Southeast Asia, having them say we want a Vietnamese version, we want a Bahasa Indonesian language version, we want a Tagalog for the Philippines version. That to us shows that we're doing something very right when the fans really appreciate the kind of games that we push out there. I think another big milestone during the development process has definitely been the US trust company. The US regulations are very, very strict, so being able to abide by US regulations is another sign that we're doing something very good.
Could you tell us more about your team and their backgrounds, as many projects launch with inexperienced team members and fail to get any real traction later on?
Sure. So there's myself. I've been working in video games for about 10 years now, blockchain about 6. Our CMO, Jack, he's been working with large brands like Vogue, Red Bull. He even won a Red Dot Design Award in 2019. Our COO, Samir, he's been involved in traditional finance for quite a while now. I think over a decade at least. For me, I don't really like talking about myself, but I gave a TED Talk in 2018 on blockchain and data security. I've won some Microsoft awards, some of the games that I've published in the past, Barclays Innovation Award. One of the largest games that I worked on was Heroes of All, which still has millions of players to this day. So blockchain and video games are definitely a life passion of mine. So Play to Earn is really allowed me to thrive kind of during this trend.
Is MELI Games a storyline-only based game? Can we play this game with other real online players like PvP?
Yes and no, right? So there are PvP elements to it, but we also added a lot of narrative, a lot of game lore. What this allows people to do is essentially, if they can't be matched to a sufficient partner, they can play the PvE, they can go through the storyline, they can earn in-game rewards without actually competing against players. Obviously, the PvP element more in-depth, they're a lot more challenging, but this allows players to build up assets, that kind of work across multiple games. We feel that players really need to enjoy the game, otherwise they're not going to be earning them. So there's definitely a lot of layers to the MELIverse, I would say, and a player definitely won't get bored.
Can you tell us more about the player versus environment mode, and how will it vary for users at different levels?
Yeah, so PvE is actually designed when a player can't compete against other players. For example, it's too difficult, it's too challenging, they don't have the right elements, they have to rethink the strategy. This really allows the players to manipulate their ELO bracket. So this allows players to, progress without actually progressing if they get into a challenging roadblock, for example. So essentially the PvE in MELI allows players to breed new characters, buy items. It really allows an extra layer to the game that we think a lot of GameFi projects just don't have.
Could you give us some examples of how other projects can leverage MELI Games?
I think as the player earns, right, as they level up, you're able to buy different items and assets across different titles. We think that this is the true power of NFT games, right? We really don't like a lot of the projects that are going out now just focused on collectibles. They're just kind of throwing game mechanics at a lot of these NFTs, and it just doesn't make sense. A game has to be built as a game. It can't really be anything else. A lot of these companies are not built or operated by gamers either. They're just kind of jumping on a trend. There was actually quite a famous project we met just as like a network, connection. I met one of the founders and I asked what's your favorite game? And they said, oh, we don't play games. To be honest, we think that that's just absolutely incredible. So MELI Games is definitely built by gamers for gamers, and we really have the gaming community in mind.
The MELI Games artist showed some amazing procedural game characters animations made in Spine Pro. What is Spine Pro? What are the advantages of using Spine Pro? How does MELI Games benefit from Spine Pro?
Okay, so Spine is just really an animation tool. What it allows us to do is we don't waste a lot of time deploying a lot of the characters, because you need to remember the NFT characters are working in multiple games. We really want to release as many games as we can to the market. So Spine really just reduces the development time and resources. We'll essentially be operating multiple games over the next few years. So Spine is just one of the tools that we use to make sure that no other game studio can kind of match what we're operating. The level and the high standard speed of deployment really separates us from a lot of the studios out there. So we use tools like Spine to breathe life into the characters, just to make sure that it's very consistent across multiple games.
In your medium, you mentioned 3 elements of the games and metaverse: Gynoid, Melioras, and Aliens. So can you explain these 3 elements? What are their main characteristics and what roles do they play within the game and metaverse?
So Gynoids are essentially just a narrative term for like cyborg humans that have discovered this new energy source called MELI. In doing so, these aliens have kind of come to the planet to take over, to steal this MELI for themselves. So the aliens are essentially a PvE element. This allows us to, kind of drive a PvE and the narrative of the game, with like an unlimited enemy, really. So that's essentially just more of like a narrative or lore terminology.
How does your project overcome every obstacle in its project development?
It's a good question. So we've actually got a very strong founding team. The leaders and managers we pick specifically for their skill set. Our team members work in good gaming companies such as like Tencent Gaming, different game publishers. So we really handpick the skill set that we introduce in the team, right? We always try to make sure that each new member that joins us, they have a skill that no one else on the team has. They kind of become a specialism for that kind of solution within the company. So it really allows us to make a lot of decisions very quickly. We go to market very, very fast. We really want to focus on making the path later on, much more easier. So if we can tackle difficult problems now, we prefer to do that instead of, kind of delaying things or trying to patch problems with quick fixes. We really try and find the biggest solution currently, so it makes the rest of the deployment much easier. Because as we scale, we think that this is the key to growing, solving those big problems now.
Your website has a solid list of partners, and these days, this is especially important for crypto projects. Tell us more about your partnerships.
So we actually saw investment last year, in around 2020, and we started building a lot of the dev tools this year. So the investment and exchange partners we have, they all have a minor stake. If it's a token stake or a token investment, they're vested for 2 years. So that means that we kind of avoid the problem that, and a lot of these other GameFi projects have where, whales come in, they buy the token during the IGO phase, and then they essentially dominate the ecosystem, or they just dump everything and use it. So essentially the only people that are going to be using the token are real players of the game. Our community can be confident basically that there's no dumping, there's no rug pulls, there's no kind of nefarious activity. Even some of the investors that bought equity quite early on, they don't have tokens. So it's either a split. And the investment and media partners that we use, we chose the investors very carefully, and we base them globally and in key regions. This means that we have essentially a very strong network leverage compared to other companies out there.
Why did you choose the BSC network for your project?
Okay, so there's a few reasons actually why BSC makes a lot of sense. One of them is the familiarity from users with blockchain tools, wallets, exchanges. They're very familiar with the setup thanks to Ethereum. Another one is the cost and the availability of blockchain engineers. This is a very big problem in the industry right now, that there just isn't enough developers. So BSC, because of its similarities to Ethereum, there's a lot more top-tier developers out there that are very familiar with it. Another thing is like Binance also made a $1 billion right to drive the adoption. So we're hoping to ride a lot of the wave from the marketing kind of from there, essentially. Binance Smart Chain is a very capable network. It is worth noting that we are deploying on multiple protocols just to allow the greatest access to players, really. It's more of a distribution strategy that we have. It's worth noting as well that MELI is actually going to be launched on OEC next week.
For project development, the main priority is having enough funds. Is your team financially capable to run this project?
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people think that after a token is launched, the team essentially have, all this unlimited funds. While it's true, the founding team members' tokens are actually vested for about 4 years. We raised enough VC funds to kind of deploy the correct strategy. We really don't monetize the token for ourselves. It's really intended to get out there in the hands of users and players. We think that if the team had tokens, it could cloud the vision. So we're really focused on like a 5-year strategy. We really want to be around the industry in 10 years' time, right? Not 10 months. So it really means that the community really just needs to focus on playing our games. They can trust us, especially with the US regulation. And we have several $1 million in equity that we raised earlier this year that is specifically used just to build the games, just to acquire different media partners and different services that we need as we move forward. So 100%, we've got the financial roadmap to complete the strategy.
User experience is a very important issue in most projects. Does MELI Games focus on this? What has MELI Games done to bring the best user experience, especially to new users?
Sure. So we have a few UI UX designers who listen to feedback from the community managers, from the community themselves. When we built MELI, we really want to focus on becoming a market leader. So we've looked at the biggest projects out there now. We listened to their players and the kind of pain points and the issues that they had. And we wanted to design a similar experience, but we didn't want to look like we were copying. We just want players to understand the core fundamentals of the game very, very quickly. But if anyone watching this right now has, an opinion or feedback and they want to let us know, feel free to join the Telegram group. We really focused on listening to our community management team, to the players themselves. We really like it when people give us feedback and let us know their opinions. And, without the users and players, like MELI just wouldn't be possible. It's the best strategy is to listen to players and listen to what they want so we can build a game collaboratively.
How can I use MELI in MELI Games ecosystem? Is there any reward mechanism for holding MELI, and what are the benefits of holding it in the long term?
Sure. So besides speculation, MELI is very much a utility token. So of course there's staking pools, DeFi partners. There's many ways to earn MELI. Once a player has the MELI token, they can use it to breed new NFTs, they can use it to buy items. Later on they'll be able to use it for land guilds. They can use it to upgrade characters. They can use it for trading. There's so many use cases for MELI. Our mantra essentially is play, stake, earn, repeat. So staking and holding MELI is definitely one of the best ways to start.
What do you believe is needed in order for MELI and the blockchain gaming space to continue to advance and evolve?
We think honesty and trust from project founders is definitely important. We think blockchain's kind of got a bad name, and especially in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of nefarious activities, there's a lot of bad apples, so to speak. So we think that regulation's coming, but that's one of the reasons why we focused on the US kind of regulation framework. We really want to be here, as I mentioned before, we really want to be here in like 10 years, not 10 months. So that's another reason why we've been focusing on US regulation. So we think honesty and trust from, these projects is definitely something that needs to be kind of regulated and enforced.
How important is the community for MELI Games, and what steps will be taken by the team to keep the interests of the community and investors intact?
So we'll really be focusing on reaching more game guilds, more communities. We have multiple meetings per week. We're always looking for media partners. We're always looking for guild partners, anyone essentially with a KOL community. As we release more games, we really want to grow the community and have region-specific games in the long term. But what it means is the NFT assets work across multiple games. This is our solution to the big problem of interoperable NFTs. We looked at the games out there, we listened to their players, and we said, what don't you like about this current game that you're playing? And we've really found kind of ways around that. We've looked at the big games and the big problems they have, and then we've built solutions to those from the ground up. We really interacted with the community, and we really appreciate, speaking to them and support and everything that they can do.
Burning of tokens is the best thing for controlling the price of the token and reducing the supply. So do you have any plans of burning tokens?
Not necessarily, but we do reserve the tokens in a US-based trust company. Not only is this for the safety of our players, but it gives us a very strong legal opinion as we grow, as regulation is kind of enforced in the space. As we get millions of players, into the ecosystem, we don't really want to be restricted by a very limited supply of tokens. So once a token has expired, so to speak, it's held in the US trust company. And then as we have more players, when we reach 500,000 players, 1 million players, 2 million players, we just release more tokens into the market. This allows players to essentially monetize very efficiently as they earn, but it also allows us to, kind of navigate the kind of circulation issue that a lot of these problems have. So even though we don't burn tokens, we do kind of take them out of circulation by holding them in the US trust company. This allows players to have a decent return from MELI compared to other games out there.
MELI is a blockchain game that combines gameplay such as battles or player ranking and farming. But can you tell us a bit more about farming? Can we farm our NFTs and generate MELI or PC tokens from the crops?
Sure. So farming is a bit of a unique feature, right? We think that we're the only GameFi studio out there that's truly gamifying the DeFi space. There's millions of people that don't really have any financial education. They don't really understand DeFi or yield farming, etc. They don't really understand the true potential for earning. There's a lot of other projects out there that are falsely claiming they're going to, gamify. They'll be offering, different features. But these are still companies that are not game designers, right? They don't really understand the core concepts of, an enjoyable game. We've got a few partners in mind that we're going to be working with in terms of back-end support. On the front, the game is going to sit there and essentially have game features, tapped into this DeFi API, so to speak. Users will be putting characters fleet, or they'll be staking varying assets. This is very understandable compared to, depositing 2 tokens essentially to receive an LP token and then using that to essentially, monetize. It's a very complicated process, but in terms of a game, it's very understandable. We want players to be earning the most in MELI compared to any other game.
Once the product is developed, one of the main challenges seems to be adoption. What are some of the plans to stimulate adoption and build out the ecosystem around MELI Games?
Okay, so we can't let you in on any secrets right now, but we have partnered with several game guilds across Southeast Asia. We'll be operating airdrops, we'll be giving out free accounts to scholars, we'll be giving gifting, we'll be giving NFTs through players, across different regions. If there's anyone watching this right now that's a member of a guild and you want us to work together, feel free to join us in the Telegram group, let us know. More than happy to speak to them, and we're always looking for partners. Next year, we'll be looking at South America and Africa. In the immediate time, we're really focusing on Southeast Asia. We think that there's a lot of demand here. To earn a decent salary essentially from MELI Games is very reasonable. So that's why we're really targeting kind of underbanked regions, so to speak. So everyone make sure to join social media and let us know.
Okay, we're down to the last question. Where can I currently buy the token?
Okay, so you can actually get it from MEXC directly. Just make an account and you can get MELI immediately. We're also available on PancakeSwap and some other exchanges, but make sure that smart contract address is verified, right? So go to our website, verify the smart contract address is the same as PancakeSwap, because there's a lot of false MELI tokens out there and we don't want our users to be susceptible. But the safest option would be make an account with MEXC or one of their exchange partners and then get MELI direct.
All right, thanks for answering 20 questions from the community. Now it's your turn to ask our fans 6 questions. Do you have the 6 questions ready?
Yes, we do. Okay, so the first question would be, what is the meaning behind MELI? The second question would be, what blockchain network is MELI built on? The third question is, MELI is built alongside what other token? What is the name of the secondary token alongside MELI used in the game? The fourth question is, what year was MELI Games founded? Fifth question is, how many factions in the game are there and what are they called? And the final question, how does the player level up their MELI character?
Awesome session. Thanks for the questions. We hope you guys like the interview session with Warren. For fans whose questions are selected, please claim your rewards as per the instructions in the description box below. And for those who want to participate and win bonus USDT, simply answer the 6 questions that Warren had asked. Comment your answers in the comment section below and we will pick 6 lucky winners. Thanks once again for coming onto our show, Warren. Till the next time, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel. Bye!
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.